REM, and these are all the books I read in November of 2025. So as usual, we will start with DNFs, books I did not finish, and then continue to the books I read in the order I read them. So unfortunately, I actually had quite a few DNFs this month, and we'll start with the first one I DNF'd, which was The Worlds of A. van Vogt. If you do not know, A. van Vogt was a very, very well-known science fiction author in the 30s to 70s. Then this is a collection of short stories by him. I was enjoying this kind of in the beginning, but eventually I felt it's just adventure after adventure, plot after, just, and I'm not getting anything out of it. The main thing that was missing for me was any form of character. Obviously, this is just not for me. My father loves this stuff. He does not care about character development at all. There's also someone I follow on YouTube that mentioned actually not liking at all books that are focused only on character development or even mainly on character. So this is a preference. So yeah, this just wasn't for me. I also DNF'd Master of Poisons by Andrea Hairston. Again, it's another one that's just not for me. I read a few pages of it, and the writing was fine, but I knew it's not the kind of writing that I personally like. Then I DNF'd Theory of Literature by Renee Wellach and Austin Warren. This is a very old book, so part of the reason that I didn't like it was it's like it's not trying to convince me, it's just telling me. But I was trying to read it despite that, just to try to get something out of it. Like, I don't, I still have my own mind if they're trying to tell me. But, I got to the point where they were just, it was a page, and I did not understand what they were trying to say. The words just didn't make any sense. They were using a lot of terms that they hadn't explained. So, yeah. So I decided to put it down. Then, much later on in the month, actually, is when I DNF'd Butcher's Crossing by John Williams, and I was really, really, really sad about this. Because earlier this year, I read Stoner by John Williams, and I loved it. Then I read Nothing But the Night by John Williams, and I thought it was okay, but not anything to write home about. And then I tried to read Butcher's Crossing, and I really, really tried. I was reading 10 pages a day for a week. I was trying to love this book, but I couldn't. And again, my problem was the same it was with the A. van Vogt book. There was no character, which is exactly the opposite of Stoner, which is all focused on one character. This one had no character to it, and eventually I got to a page where it was describing this guy making bullets, which when Laura Ingalls Wilder wrote it, I found it super interesting, and I found it super boring to hear. I was like, if there's something that I found super interesting when a different author wrote it, and I find it super boring here, and I'm struggling to get through this book, I guess I have to DNF it. So yeah, sadly, I DNF'd Butcher's Crossing, which it also sounded really good to me. And lastly, I DNF'd Harley Quinn Reckoning by Rachel Allen, just because I read 5 pages and the writing was terrible. Well, not terrible, but it was bad. It was juvenile, and not in a good way. I loved kids' books. This was juvenile in an immature way. Okay. Wait. Yeah, that I did. Okay. So now let's get into all the books I actually read. Okay. So the first one I read was A Matter of Execution by Nicholas and Olivia Atwater, and I really, really like this one. I read the Regency Fairy Tales by Olivia Atwater, and one of the Victorian fairy tales is out right now, and while I enjoy the Regency Fairy Tales much more than I expected, there's nothing at all like this book, and this book is actually much more up my personal alley. I really liked it. Wait, so what is it about? It's a novella, and we're following our main character, who is a goblin captain. It's in a fantasy world. And our goblin captain is arrested for something that he didn't do. And when he escapes, he actually also breaks out another guy who was arrested for something that he very much did. And this leads to all kinds of shenanigans, and I had the funnest time with this book, and I really hope they put out more of the series because it was such a good time. Then I read another very good time book, which was Constant Verity Saves the World by Aileen Martinez. So this is the second in the Constant Verity trilogy. I read the first one in October, I believe. Yeah. And basically, we have our main character, Constance Verity, obviously, and she is a superhero. Now, why is she a superhero? Because when she was a baby, a fairy godmother blessed her to a life of adventure. So, what I really like about the series is the characters. What a surprise! I was complaining all about the DNFs that there wasn't enough characters. Now I'm like the series because of the characters. So, yeah, I really like how the relationships between the characters develop. Where Connie is in the beginning of the first book in her relationship with someone is not the same as where she is in the beginning of this book, and it also changes to the end of that book, but it all feels very natural. Even though the places are so different, they feel very natural that this is the continuation. Also, this series is just such a fun, silly time playing on all these superhero adventure fiction tropes, and I love that so much. We'll get to, and now though, we're going to jump ahead and talk about Constant Verity Destroys the Universe, which I also read in November. And I'm just going to talk about it quickly because the thing is, I don't feel like I can really judge this book correctly because I was listening to the audiobook because I really enjoyed the audiobook for the first two books. However, the audiobook narrator must have had a cold or something while narrating it, and it really bothered me. And I feel like because of that, I wasn't listening properly. I even fell asleep at one point while listening to it, which is not really something I do. So I'd like to go back and read it with my eyes just because I feel like I did not actually get uh, out of it what I could have gotten out of it. Okay. And now, speaking of series, let's jump ahead and talk about Shazam number 9, Shazam number 10, and Shazam number 3 by Geoff Johns. This is Shazam 2019, or Shazam and the Magic Land, and the Seven Magic Lands. So, one thing about this is these are comics, and I read them all so spaced so close together that, like, do I really remember the differences? No. So I'm just going to take a pause and look. Okay, so yeah, I think I know what I want to say. So first of all, I'll tell you what the series is about. We have our superhero character Shazam and his Shazamily, his foster family of superheroes too. All his foster siblings are superheroes. And in this book, they find the entrance in their secret lair to seven magic lands. They go in them, get trapped, get separated and trapped in different lands. Meanwhile, there is a villain who's trying to do stuff. I don't want to spoil anything. And yeah. So actually there are a few villains trying to do stuff and they're working against each other, but they're also working against the Shazamily. Yeah. Um so what I really did like about these three comics that I read was I felt like I was really kept on my toes. Like there were some plot arcs happening that I was like, wait one moment, I don't like that. And then it would twist it. I would be like, oh, okay. Yeah. So I felt like it was like really playing with stuff in a way that was like almost annoying because it was like, well, why did you give me almost give me the bad ending? And then it would move it to like, it would twist it. And it was, yeah, it's been fun to read it and I'm curious to see what will happen next because, yeah, we were left on a cliffhanger. Yeah. Okay. Then I read, here we are, The Adventures of Unc Billy Possum by Thornton W. Burgess, which these books are actually so old. 1914. This was first published in 1914. This is a series of books that follow a bunch of different animals in, not Virginia, somewhere north of that. Some state in the United States that's north of Virginia. Wow. And they all live in the woods. It kind of reminded me of Winnie the Pooh in that way. But other than that, it's very different than Winnie the Pooh. So our main character in this is obviously a possum named Unc Billy Possum. and it was just about his adventures. I did enjoy it, but however, I did find weird that like the author was trying to force it to be like kind of a moral tale to end, but there was no way to do that because oh my god, Kit Kat! I just cleaned. I literally just cleaned, and there's cat fur all over the floor. Literally, I cleaned like 9:30. I was cleaning the floor. It's 12:45. There's cat fur everywhere again. Oh my god. Kit Kat, what are you doing? Um, now there's cat fur stuck to my hand. Um, yes, Unc Billy Possum. So yeah, he is not like he is. His main character traits are not good. Like he's super lazy. He's a thief, and it felt kind of weird because we have the villains and like they have the same traits as him. They're just rejected. Like honestly, like I enjoy the stories, but the whole idea of who's the villains and who's the good guys in this, it did not work. Okay, I'm sorry, I got distracted by the cat hair, but let's. Oh my gosh, there's more cat hair everywhere. I literally just cleaned. Let's move on to the next one, which is another series. I read Smoke and Shadow Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. So this is a series that follows a series that follows a series. I don't remember. I think this is the 5th series. But basically, these are comic series that follow the TV show Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I didn't like this as much as the last ones. So I didn't really like the first series, and then as they were going on, I kept on liking each series a little more. But this one, I didn't dislike it as much as the first one. Like I didn't dislike that one, but you know what I mean. But I felt like it fell short of what it could have been. The plot twist was kind of obvious, and I felt like it kept on going into. It was the topics were spread too wide. There weren't like it was had too many topics, and they were only covering thin parts of them. I always rather fewer topics, but you go deep into them. Then I read Across the Desert by Dusty Bowling, and I'm going to pause a moment to get some more water. So I actually have a whole vlog out about this book, but this is a middle grade that I was a bit nervous to get into because the plot didn't sound that great, but I ended up quite enjoying it except for the very end. And so basically we have our main character, Jolene, who lives in Phoenix, Arizona, which is a big city in a state in America. And she has problems in her personal life because her mom is addicted to opioids. And like the thing that makes her like feel like she's getting out of her head is she goes to the library and she watches a live stream of this girl around her age who is flying like the tricycle equivalent of a plane across the Arizona desert. And then one day she's watching it and the plane crashes. And nobody believes her. And this is the thing. I was afraid, like, why does she have to go save this girl on her own? But nobody believes her for very good reasons. Like, it did at one point, there were a few points where it was like stretching my suspension of disbelief too much. But overall, I felt like there were good reasons that the adults here didn't believe her. So she decides to go and rescue this kid herself. And as I said, overall, I enjoyed the book. Even though it was adventure after adventure after adventure, which I generally do not like, I felt that it was done well. It was realistic overall. Yeah. So overall, I enjoyed the book. However, the ending, and it's annoying when it's the ending because sometimes the endings spoil it for you, and it's like, oh, would have spoiled the whole book. You couldn't change the ending. But like, if this ending had been the part that annoyed me in the ending had been in the middle, it wouldn't have spoiled the whole book for me. But anyways, what spoiled the book for me in the ending became overly moralistic. There were little moralistic nuggets that I was ignoring throughout the book, but they were tiny. But it became like outright not subtext at all moralistic, and that I hate moralistic stories. So yeah, that kind of spoiled the book for me, unfortunately. Then I read Hardboiled Wonderland and the End of the World by Haruki Murakami, and I think I'm going to be a bit mean about this book. And like part of that is my personal feelings of the author, so I'm trying to like tone it down because I don't like the author, but I don't want that to affect how I feel about how I'm talking about the book. Did I like this book? No. Did I dislike it? No. It was So what is this book about? This is a science fiction book about this guy who lives in the near future to when this book was written. So there are things that seem obsolete to us now, but you know. Um, and he basically works as his job is to be a quantum computer. That's his job. And he gets in with this very old guy who is working on human minds. And then that's alternating chapters. The other alternating chapters is we see his mindscape. Now, the thing about this book is I didn't feel it was in any way innovative, interesting, anything it was trying to be, including philosophical. Like, what I felt about the book itself, I felt, it's okay. About the part, I did feel, however, that the book, Haruki Murakami was trying to be very, very philosophical, but he wasn't thinking deeply enough. And that annoyed me because the whole end of the book, there's the last paragraph of the book, it hinges on our main character answering a philosophical question, and then he just does not think about it. He's like, he asks a philosophical question and doesn't think about it. And that really annoyed me. So again, I guess it's kind of like Across the Desert, where it was like, the book was, in that case, like the book in this book, I thought it was okay. But yeah, the ending annoyed me, and that kind of shapes my view on the rest of the book. In this case, it really was the last paragraph. Okay. I then read All's Fair by Nancy Krulik. This is also in a reading vlog. This is a Kitty Kazoo Switcheroo book. The Kitty Kazoo Switcheroo series. Wait, I have a different book from the Kitty Kazoo Switcheroo series, so I'll hold it up as like... Nah, I won't hold it up. Anyways, it's a early chapter book, reading books about... Early reading chapter books about a girl who, in the first book, she makes a wish that she has a terrible day. She makes a wish that she could be anyone but her. And in every book, a magic wind comes and turns her for a little bit into anyone but her. So it could be anyone. She gets turned into a goat in this book. Sorry, spoilers. I don't think any of you care. All the people who are watching. Anyways, I did enjoy it. It was actually I liked the plot. I thought it was silly, funny, and yeah. I I do have to wonder what's up with her best friend though. What is happening at home? Because her best friend, or in her best friend's mind, because her best friend is such low self-esteem. So yeah. Okay. Then I read Folktales for Fearless Girls, Stories We Were Never Told by Miriam Sayalero and illustrated by Danny Torrent. This is also in a reading vlog. I think they're all three in the same reading vlog, I'm not sure. So this is just a collection of fairy tales with women as people who save someone. They're not necessarily the heroines. The illustrations, we'll talk about them first, because I feel like I can say more about them. I didn't really like them. I felt they were too vague, not my style, but that's okay. Like, they weren't bad, they weren't my thing. Then the book itself is like, I feel like, here's the thing, I enjoyed reading it because I wasn't reading it to get a story about woman saving the day. I was reading it because I wanted to read fairy tales that I had not read before. And that was my goal, and I got that goal. However, if I were reading this to be what it said on the cover, which is basically women are heroines, I wouldn't have gotten this out of that book because a lot of the stories do not have the woman as heroines. Then I read South Writing by Winifred Holsby. This is a book published in the 30s that follows 3 years of a district in Yorkshire, England. And it follows like certain people from all over the district, of all ages, and of all classes. It was a very long book. I definitely felt it was too long. Now, the interesting thing about it is that this is very much a character study, but it's multiple characters, and there were some of them I liked, and some of them I didn't. Like, I felt like she did the younger people very well. Or, actually, you know what? I felt like she did the woman very well. The woman, I felt like they were written well. The men, for the most part, I felt like their characters just didn't add up. Like she would write something, and then a few pages, or a few chapters later, there would be something that didn't add up to what we've seen of their character. Like she would describe one thing, but we would see another thing. So yeah, 6, 7. Seriously though, yeah, this is like a very up and down book. So I guess like still 3.5 stars if I gave star ratings. She was incredibly prescient about what was going to happen in World War II, though. Then I read The Scourge Between the Stars by Ness Brown. This is a short little horror novella, about a generational ship that are the survivors of a failed expedition to set up humans on another planet who are trying to get back to Earth. Now, they have two problems. One, there's some creatures that are fighting a war and their ships keep getting banged and parts of it getting ruined from it. Two, they actually have 3 problems. Two problems. Two, their food stores are suddenly low for no reason, like even in places that were never opened. And then something starts eating the crew. So overall, I did like this book, and I would read more from Ness Brown. I believe this is her debut novel. Uh, and yeah, you can tell it's a debut. Like, but because it's a debut and because I overall enjoyed it, I'm going to say mostly the good stuff. So I really enjoyed our main character. She is the captain, and a lot of times I feel like when people write captains, they make them feel like inhuman. Like, and in this case, I definitely felt like she was human and why she was making her decisions. However, here's a negative thing. The decisions were sometimes kind of absurd. I understood why she was making them. At the same time, I felt like maybe we should have added, like, obviously she was sleep deprived in that, but like, it still felt absurd. Like someone would have said something to her. Two, like there were so many easy solutions I could think of. Then the other thing, I did feel this book was definitely scary. Yeah, and it was definitely scary, and I felt like she could have expanded it a bit more, stretched out one part of our main character's father, stretched out the ending definitely or taking out the plot with the war going on around them totally. But overall, I liked it. I would read more from Ness Brown. Then I read Joplin Wishing by Diane Stanley. This is a middle grade fantasy where we follow our main character, Joplin, who is being bullied at school. And she inherits from her grandfather a broken Delftware platter. Her aunt pays someone to put it together for her, and it turns out there's a picture of a little girl. She wishes, like a little girl around her age. She wishes that that girl could be your friend, and lo and behold, the next day the girl isn't in the picture, but is in her garden. And basically, a whole plot develops from there about how that girl got in the platter. She wants to go back home to Holland, like 500 years ago. It was okay. I did feel again that this was a book that was trying to do too much. Like there was the plot, there was the character development, there was the bullying, and I felt like it was trying to do too much, and I would just like take some things out, calm down, just leave in the fantasy, or make it a non-fantasy story about bullying, but all of it is too much. So yeah, it was okay, but I didn't love it. Then I read Orphan Train by Christina Baker Klein, and follows 2 orphans. One is an elderly woman who was on the orphan train in 1929 from New York to somewhere west of New York, I forgot where. And another is a 17-year-old girl, Molly, in the foster care system with a foster mother who does not like her. And she ends up having to do community service to help this old woman clean out her attic. And yeah, we don't actually really get too much into the fact that the old woman's telling her the story. Like, we do get into it a little bit more. But yeah. So, look, I did enjoy this book. It definitely was not the best written book ever. There were many, like, that. But yeah, I felt like I liked it. I have nothing more to say. I liked it. And last but not least, I read Not in God's Name, Confronting Religious Violence by Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks. So this is a nonfiction book, exactly what it says in the title, mostly about Islamic violence, or Islamist, I don't remember. One of them. I think it's Islamist. Um, and so the thing is about this book, it has two parts, I would say. And the one part I enjoyed and one part I didn't. So the part I didn't enjoy was the actual talk about the there was like you could actually even divide it into three parts. One was Torah commentary, two interpretation, two was what do you call it? How to where does the human violence come from at all? Where does religious violence within that come from? And those parts I both enjoyed. And three, I mean, what are we going to do? What can we do about the really Islamist violence nowadays? And I felt that part failed a lot because it gave like all these nice little ideas, but with no way to really implement them. So I did not like that part. The other two parts I did enjoy. It was very interesting to read old. Wait, Kit Kat? Okay, he was having a nightmare. It was very interesting to read oldest philosophers that he brings up, and yeah. And the Tober commentary I loved. I definitely loved it. It was very, very interesting, and he brought a lot of new ideas. So those are all the books that I read in November. Let's count how many there are. There were 19 books. Now, let's count the series. So, I started 3 series with A Matter of Execution, The Adventures of Unc Billy Possum, and Smoke and Shadow Part 1. Did I say that I started 3 series with A Matter of Execution, The Adventures of Unc Billy Possum, and Smoke and Shadow Part 1? I also reached as far as I can go in a series with A Matter of Execution because it's the only one that's published. I continued 5 series with Constant Verity Saves the World, Shazam, and Seven Magic Lands number 9, 10, and 11, and Smoke and Shadow Part 2. And I completed 2 series of Smoke and Shadow Part 3 and Constance Verity Destroys the Universe.